The world had never felt so vulnerable. For years, Earth had watched as alien fleets appeared in the skies, slowly encroaching on their peaceful existence. At first, it was easy to dismiss the threat. "They'll never come here," the humans told themselves. But now, those same alien forces had arrived, and they were not here for a peaceful negotiation. They were here to conquer. Humanity had always relied on its innovation and sheer willpower to survive, but against an alien race with technologies that made Earth's weapons look like toys, the fight seemed hopeless. The human military was struggling to hold the line. Every defense system they deployed was obliterated within minutes by the alien superweapons, which fired beams that cut through their strongest defenses like paper. Alien ships hovered over Earth, their sleek, black designs glimmering in the sunlight, mocking the human forces below. The world watched in helplessness as news reports showed the invasion happening in real time. Alien ships, massive in size, were orbiting the planet. Some had already landed, unleashing robotic soldiers that wreaked havoc on Earth's cities. Military forces were overwhelmed, each battle ended with humanity losing ground. The Earth's defenses, missiles, tanks, and fighter jets, were no match for the alien technology. At Earth's Central Command, General Rayner stood in front of a large screen, watching as cities fell one by one. His expression was grim, his hands clenched tightly at his sides. The room was eerily silent, filled with tension. Officers rushed around him, calling in reports of battles lost and soldiers fallen, their voices full of panic. Every option had been exhausted. "We can't keep up," said one of his officers. "We're losing, sir. The aliens are too advanced." Rayner didn't respond at first. He just stared at the map in front of him, the blinking red dots signifying lost cities and troops. He knew it. The reality of it was impossible to ignore now. They were losing the war, and the human race seemed on the verge of extinction. What could one person do against a threat this powerful? As Rayner processed the information, a sense of dread filled him. The aliens had given Earth's leaders an ultimatum: surrender or perish. The Supreme Commander Zayler, a ruthless alien overlord, had made his intentions clear. Earth would be wiped from the galaxy, its resources claimed, and its people enslaved, all because humanity dared to think it could resist. Zayler's fleet, vast and unyielding, had the firepower to obliterate planets. Their ships were powered by technologies humans couldn't even begin to understand. They had shields that could withstand nuclear blasts, weapons capable of reducing cities to ashes in a single strike, and fleets that could encircle entire worlds in minutes. They mocked humanity's primitive technology, their superior weapons and fleets overwhelming the Earth's defenses with brutal efficiency. Human forces, equipped with outdated technologies, didn't stand a chance. Earth had never been able to match the alien tech, and now, the price of that disadvantage was clear. The aliens had already conquered multiple planets, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. They laughed at the idea that humans, with their simple weapons, could ever put up a fight. Even the strongest human military forces were no match for the alien battlecruisers, which seemed invincible. Every attempt to strike back only ended in failure. The alien ships had weapons that could disable Earth's satellites in seconds, and their ground forces were fast, efficient, and deadly. Robots, metallic and cold, stormed through cities, exterminating any human resistance. The human military's weapons, such as missiles and tanks, were ineffective against the advanced technology of the aliens. No matter how hard the humans fought, they were simply outmatched. Back at Earth's command center, Rayner's frustration grew. How had it come to this? What had they done wrong? The humans had built strong alliances, developed new technologies, and yet none of it had been enough. The aliens were too powerful. Earth's military was no longer in control of the situation, and their most recent attempt to fight back had ended in disaster. One of Rayner's top officers, Colonel Hayes, approached him with a report. "General, there's something you need to see. It's our last hope." Raynor looked at him with a raised eyebrow. We don't have much time, Colonel. What is it? Colonel Hayes glanced at the screen before them. It's a new project, something that has never been tested, something we've been working on in secret. A teleportation device. If we can use it right, we can send our forces behind enemy lines, directly into their ships. Raynor's heart skipped a beat. Teleportation. He'd heard about it, of course, but it had always seemed more like a science fiction fantasy than something that could actually be used. And now, they were relying on it to save Earth. This is a joke, right? Raynor asked, the skepticism in his voice clear. I wish it were, sir, Hayes replied. The project is experimental, but it's all we have left. We could be able to teleport soldiers right into the heart of the alien fleet. If it works, we could cripple them from the inside. Raynor was silent for a moment, considering the idea. It was a long shot, but what other choice did they have? The aliens were closing in. Earth was about to fall. He had to try. They had to try. What's the status? Raynor asked, determination creeping into his voice. It's ready, Hayes answered. But we need a team. We need soldiers who are willing to risk everything to make it work. Raynor looked at the countdown timer ticking down to 0, signaling the moment when alien ships would begin their final strike against Earth. He knew that there was no room for hesitation. The time had come. This was humanity's last chance. Prepare the teleportation team, Raynor ordered. We'll move forward with this. If we fail, Earth falls. No pressure. The room was quiet as the officers and scientists scrambled to prepare for the mission. Raynor watched them, his mind racing. The teleportation technology was their final hope, but it was untested and risky. Could it really work? Would they even be able to teleport to the alien ships without being lost in space? Would the device malfunction and send them into an abyss? There were no guarantees, but it was their only option. As alien warships began to descend into Earth's atmosphere, Raynor gathered his most trusted soldiers, including Lieutenant Emma Clark, a brilliant tactician who had proven herself in battle time and time again. She was one of the few who had volunteered for the teleportation mission. We don't know what we'll face once we get to the other side, Raynor said to Clark and her team. You'll be behind enemy lines, and you'll have to fight your way out. It's a one-way trip. Do you understand? Yes, sir, Clark responded, her voice steady. We'll do whatever it takes. Raynor nodded and turned to the control panel. The teleportation device hummed to life, glowing with an eerie blue light. The soldiers stood ready, nerves taut, their faces showing a mixture of fear and determination. Good luck, Raynor said as the device activated, and in an instant, Clark and her team were gone. The room fell silent. As the teleportation team disappeared into thin air, the alien warships continued their descent toward Earth. The first wave of attacks was imminent, and Earth was on the brink of annihilation. General Raynor's decision had been made. The fate of humanity now rested on the success of the teleportation mission, and that hope was quickly vanishing. Would Earth survive? Would humanity be able to defend itself? The next few moments would decide the future of mankind. The air was thick with tension in the command center as General Raynor and his team watched the large holographic display of Earth's skies. The alien warships, massive and menacing, continued to hover ominously, their deadly weapons ready to strike. The countdown was almost over. The fate of the entire planet rested on the shoulders of a small group of soldiers who had just been sent behind enemy lines, without even knowing what awaited them. Lieutenant Emma Clark and her team were Earth's last hope. As they were teleported through the mysterious device, their fates had already been sealed. They had been trained for years to fight, but no one could have prepared them for this. They were about to step into the heart of the alien fleet. The teleportation device had worked. The light that surrounded them was bright and disorienting, but in an instant, they found themselves on the bridge of an alien warship. There was no sound. No warning. Just the cold, sterile steel of the alien ship, and the sound of their own breath in their helmets. The room was dark, lit only by the cold glow of alien technology. The walls hummed with energy, the air thick with the scent of something unfamiliar, metallic. Clark stood still for a moment, her mind racing. Her team had made it, but what now? They had never trained for this, facing the enemy on their own turf, with no backup, no reinforcements, and no idea of how to navigate the alien technology. Clark, a voice whispered over the comms. It was Sergeant Bonner, one of her most trusted soldiers. "What's the plan, ma'am?" The tension was palpable as Clark snapped into action, assessing the ship around her. The layout of the bridge was unfamiliar, the controls nothing like anything they had ever seen on Earth. The alien ship was far more advanced than any human technology, yet it still had vulnerabilities. The key now was to exploit them. They had to disable the ship before the aliens even realized they were there. "Stay alert. We need to take down their weapons and communications," Clark ordered, her voice steady, though her heart pounded in her chest. She could feel the weight of the mission pressing on her, but she refused to let fear show. "Bonner, you take the weapons systems. I'll handle communications." With swift, synchronized movements, the team began to work. The soldiers, clad in their advanced human armor, moved quickly through the ship, scanning every corner for hostile forces. They knew time was running out. Every second they were on the alien ship, they were vulnerable. If the aliens discovered their presence, they would be at a serious disadvantage. The only way to survive was to act quickly and decisively. The first alien they encountered was a lone sentry, stationed near the weapons control. It was large, at least 2 meters tall, and it turned its head slowly as it noticed the intruders. But before it could react, Sergeant Bonner was already there, his weapon raised and aimed at the alien's chest. The alien didn't even have time to fire its energy weapon before Bonner pulled the trigger, sending a bolt of energy into the alien's chest. It crumpled to the floor in a heap of smoke and sparks. "One down," Bonner reported, his voice calm despite the situation. Clark didn't respond. She was already moving, her mind focused on the task at hand. The teleportation team's primary goal was to disable the aliens' weapons systems, but they had to be quick. The longer they stayed, the higher the chance the aliens would discover them. If they failed, Earth would be lost. There was no room for error. "Stay on task," Clark called over the comms as her team moved through the narrow corridors. They passed alien consoles and strange devices, their purpose completely unknown to them. The technology was advanced, almost alien in its complexity. But they had one advantage: human ingenuity. Clark knew that if anyone could figure out how to disable these systems, it was her team. They reached the weapons control room. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing rows of glowing panels and strange alien machinery. The team immediately set to work, placing explosives and hacking into the alien systems, trying to shut down their powerful energy cannons. But as they worked, the ship began to shake. Clark felt the rumble beneath her feet as the alien soldiers began to realize something was wrong. The sounds of alien voices filtered in over the comms, shouts, orders, panic. The humans had breached their vessel. The element of surprise was slipping away. "We've got to move fast," Clark shouted. "We're running out of time." The team worked faster, their hearts racing as the seconds ticked by. Finally, with a loud hum and a burst of sparks, the ship's weapon systems powered down. The first victory for humanity. But it wasn't over yet. Now they had to disable the alien communications to ensure the enemy couldn't call for reinforcements. The next few moments passed in a blur of action and chaos. The team moved quickly, trying to make their way toward the communications room. They encountered more alien soldiers, but they were no match for the humans' quick thinking and superior training. Clark's team, despite their small numbers, had the upper hand in this battle. As they neared the communications room, a larger group of alien soldiers appeared. The ambush was swift and brutal. They fired energy blasts that lit up the dark corridors, sending the humans diving for cover. One of the team members, Private Miller, was hit, falling to the floor with a scream. "Stay focused. Get Miller out of here," Clark shouted, her voice breaking through the chaos. Sergeant Bonner was at her side in an instant, grabbing Miller's injured form and pulling him to safety. But as they retreated to a safer position, Bonner saw the incoming aliens, more than a dozen of them, advancing quickly, their weapons raised. "We can't outrun them, ma'am," Bonner said, his voice steady, despite the danger. "I'll hold them off. You finish the mission." Clark's heart sank. Bonner was one of her best men. To lose him now would be devastating, but there was no time for sentimentality. The mission had to succeed. "Bonner, no. Get to the communications room, now," Clark ordered. But Bonner didn't listen. He pushed her toward the room, his face determined. "It's too late for me, Lieutenant. You've got to finish this. For Earth." With a final, desperate look at his comrades, Sergeant Bonner charged at the alien soldiers, firing his weapon and taking down two of them before he was overwhelmed. His sacrifice bought Clark and the rest of the team the time they needed. Clark was devastated. She had lost one of her best soldiers. But she couldn't afford to mourn him. Not yet. She had to finish what they had started. She entered the communications room, quickly finding the alien consoles. The alien soldiers outside were closing in, but Clark didn't hesitate. With precise movements, she hacked into the alien systems, disabling their communication channels. The aliens wouldn't be able to call for backup now. The odds were still against them, but this small victory gave humanity a fighting chance. With the communications down and the weapons disabled, the team had done their part. But the battle wasn't over. It had only just begun. Clark stood, breathing heavily, her heart racing, as she looked out at the alien fleet. The mission was a success, but at a heavy cost. Sergeant Bonner was gone, but his sacrifice had not been in vain. "Tell Earth," she said to her team, "we've given them a chance. Now, we fight." The war was no longer a fight for survival, it had become a desperate race to reclaim Earth. With each passing day, the alien forces tightened their grip, their technologically superior weapons raining down destruction. But humanity was not ready to give up. After the success of their first strike, Earth's forces now had a glimmer of hope, and they were using it to their advantage. The teleportation technology, once seen as a last-ditch gamble, was now humanity's most powerful weapon. The humans had learned quickly. Their tactics were unconventional, and they were catching the alien forces off guard. Every day, the Earth's military used the teleporters to launch surprise attacks on the most vulnerable alien warships. The soldiers would teleport behind enemy lines, disrupting the fleet at key locations, taking out crucial targets, and retreating before the aliens even had time to respond. It was chaos for the invaders. The aliens, accustomed to dominating their enemies with overwhelming force, were now struggling to anticipate where the humans would strike next. And every attack made them more and more desperate. Despite their success, there was a heavy toll on the human side. The death of Sergeant Bonner had struck a devastating blow to the team. His sacrifice weighed heavily on everyone. Bonner had been more than just a soldier, he had been a brother in arms, someone who had fought side by side with them in countless missions. His loss was not just a blow to their ranks, it was a reminder of how fragile their fight for survival really was. For Lieutenant Emma Clark, the pain was sharp. She couldn't shake the image of Bonner charging into battle, his face determined even as the alien soldiers closed in. It wasn't fair. He didn't deserve to die, but his sacrifice had given them a chance. They could not let that sacrifice go in vain. "We'll finish this," Clark muttered to herself, her voice barely audible over the hum of the teleportation device as she prepared for their next mission. For you, Bonner. We'll finish this. The grief wasn't just felt by Clark. The entire unit felt it. Private Miller, still recovering from his injuries, often caught Clark's eye, a silent acknowledgement of the heavy burden they all carried. Sergeant Harris, usually stoic and quiet, had grown more determined than ever. Each member of the team had been affected, but they were united by the same cause, to honor their fallen comrade and protect their home. Meanwhile, back at the Earth Command Center, General Rayner watched the transmissions from his commanders. The humans were gaining small victories, but the cost was high. Every battle claimed more lives. Rayner was no stranger to loss, but the grief that came with Bonner's death hit him hard. He had to remain strong, not just for the soldiers, but for the future of Earth. As the news of the latest strike came in, General Rayner stood before the holographic map of Earth's military movements. The alien fleet was still massive, and every victory seemed to be followed by an equally devastating counterattack. But one thing had changed: humanity had found its fighting spirit. The teleportation strikes had put the aliens on the defensive, and their plan to invade Earth had hit a significant obstacle. The tide of the war had begun to shift, however slightly. He clenched his fists, his jaw tight. We've lost good men and women, but we will never give up. Not now, not ever. His eyes scanned the faces of the officers around him, but he knew that his words, though comforting, were no longer enough. The humans needed something more than just orders, they needed a reason to keep fighting, to keep going. Rayner had always been a man of action, but the loss of Bonner had made him rethink everything. We will avenge every fallen soldier, he vowed, his voice low and filled with the kind of intensity that would make even the most seasoned soldier feel the weight of his words. We will fight until the last breath, and when this war is over, Earth will stand victorious. I promise you that. The room fell silent, each officer reflecting on Rayner's words. It wasn't just a command, it was a promise. And the soldiers would carry that promise with them into every battle that lay ahead. The Earth's forces were no longer just surviving, they were striking back. The alien fleet, which had once been so confident in its superiority, now found itself struggling to maintain control. Human soldiers, using the teleportation technology, infiltrated the alien ships in waves. It was chaos on a scale that the aliens had never experienced. No matter how advanced their weapons or shields were, the humans kept finding new ways to disrupt their operations. Orbital bombardments lit up the sky, a dazzling display of fire and destruction as humans launched attacks from the ground to take down alien command ships. Explosions rocked the heavens, and the once dominant alien warships were now reeling from the onslaught. The human forces had learned to use their surroundings to their advantage. The new cloaking technology allowed them to disappear from the alien radar, giving them the element of surprise. The cloaked soldiers would teleport behind enemy lines, hidden from the alien sensors, and strike at the heart of their fleets. With each new strike, the alien forces became more scattered, their plans disrupted, and their morale slipping. The scenes were intense and cinematic. The sounds of energy blasts filled the air as humans and aliens clashed in close-quarters combat. On one ship, a group of humans materialized inside the control room, taking out alien guards in seconds before planting explosives on the ship's engines. The alien vessel lurched violently, before plummeting into the void of space, a fiery ball of destruction. Back on Earth, the people watched in awe as the reports came in. It was a war for survival, but the humans were not only holding their own, they were fighting back with everything they had. The victory in these small battles gave the citizens of Earth something they hadn't had in a long time: hope. But hope, as fragile as it was, began to grow. As each alien warship fell and each battle was won, the humans gained more ground. The teleportation strikes had leveled the playing field, allowing Earth's forces to turn the tide of war. The final push was coming, and it was going to be a decisive moment in the fight for Earth's future. Lieutenant Clark knew that they couldn't rest yet. The enemy might be reeling, but the war was far from over. With Bonner's memory fueling their determination, the soldiers continued to fight, teleporting behind enemy lines, engaging in fast-paced action, and using their technology to strike when the aliens least expected it. The odds were still against them, but the humans were no longer afraid. The loss of Bonner had united them, made them stronger than ever. With each victory, they drew closer to their ultimate goal, destroying the alien command ships and putting an end to the invasion once and for all. The battle was fierce, the risks higher than ever, but humanity's resolve had never been stronger. As the final battle loomed on the horizon, Earth's forces were ready. The aliens had underestimated humanity. They had thought the human race would be easy to conquer, but they had made a fatal mistake. The humans were resilient, resourceful, and willing to sacrifice everything for the survival of their world. With the memory of Sergeant Bonner and all the others who had fallen in the fight for Earth, the soldiers of humanity marched forward, undaunted, unified, and ready to face whatever the aliens could throw at them. Their hope had turned into a force more powerful than any weapon. The war wasn't over yet, but Earth's soldiers were ready for the final push. And this time, the aliens would face something they had never seen before, the full force of humanity's will to survive. For months, humanity had fought desperately against the overwhelming power of the alien invaders. From the moment Earth had been invaded, it seemed like the aliens' superior technology would crush the human race. The aliens had advanced warships, cloaking devices, energy shields, and weapons far beyond anything humans had ever seen. Their forces were vast and seemed unstoppable. Yet, despite all the odds, humanity had managed to claw its way to the brink of victory. The turning point had come when Earth's forces discovered a way to use their teleportation technology to launch surprise attacks behind enemy lines. These tactics, which the aliens couldn't predict, had begun to break their hold on Earth. General Rayner and his commanders had given the human soldiers a chance to fight back, not with sheer firepower, but with their ingenuity, courage, and unpredictability. The aliens, who had assumed the war would be over in a matter of days, now found themselves on the defensive. Their powerful warships, once unchallenged in battle, were in disarray. They couldn't anticipate where the humans would strike next. The aliens, accustomed to having the upper hand, were now playing catch-up, and their military leaders were starting to panic. Every time they thought they had eliminated one human group, another would emerge from nowhere, causing chaos in their ranks. It wasn't the high-tech weapons that were winning the war for humanity, it was their resourcefulness. The unpredictability of human tactics was something the aliens couldn't handle. Earth's soldiers weren't fighting according to the enemy's rules. And that made them a formidable force. After a series of successful strikes on alien warships, General Rayner knew the time had come for a final, decisive move. The heart of the alien invasion was the Central Command ship, where Supreme Commander Zayler, the leader of the alien forces, had been orchestrating the entire campaign. If humanity could destroy Zayler's flagship, it could cripple the alien fleet and bring an end to the invasion. But this mission wasn't going to be easy. The Central Command ship was the most heavily protected vessel in the entire fleet. It was surrounded by layers of defenses, both technological and military. Getting aboard would be nearly impossible. However, Lieutenant Emma Clark, the leader of Earth's teleportation team, had a plan. The teleportation device had worked on other alien ships, now, it had to work on the enemy's most important vessel. Clark and her team had trained for this moment for weeks. They knew it wasn't just another mission, this was their chance to end the war. Every soldier on Earth was counting on them. Clark couldn't afford to fail. As the teleportation team prepared to board the alien flagship, the tension was palpable. The air was thick with anticipation, and the weight of responsibility was heavy on every soldier's shoulders. They knew the risk. They could end up teleported into the middle of an alien ambush, or worse, be lost in the vastness of space. But they had no choice. This was their one shot. The teleportation was flawless. One moment, the soldiers were on the bridge of a human warship, and the next, they found themselves on the alien command ship. Clark and her team materialized in the heart of the enemy's domain, deep inside the alien flagship. The ship's internal layout was like nothing they had ever seen before, sleek, advanced, and almost alive with its pulsating lights and alien architecture. Before they could even process their surroundings, they were already engaged in battle. Alien soldiers rushed at them from all directions, but Earth's soldiers were ready. The humans had trained for this moment, and their combat skills were second to none. They fought like a well-oiled machine, each soldier knowing exactly what to do without hesitation. The close-quarters combat was brutal. Earth's soldiers, armed with their own advanced weapons and technology, took on the alien soldiers in hand-to-hand combat, each fight a struggle for survival. Blades clashed, energy weapons fired, and the hum of alien machinery filled the air. Despite the alien forces' superior physical strength and advanced weaponry, the humans' determination was greater. They pushed forward, taking out alien guards and clearing the way to the command center. As the humans reached the heart of the flagship, Clark's team planted explosives on the critical systems, hoping to disable the entire ship. They had come this far, and there was no turning back. The alien forces were in disarray, but they were still formidable, and the humans knew their time was running out. The countdown to their mission's success had begun, but there was one more obstacle to overcome: Supreme Commander Zaylor. Just as the humans were preparing to activate the explosives, Zaylor appeared on the ship's main screen, his voice echoing through the room. "You think you've won?" His voice was cold, mocking. "You think your little surprise attacks have caught me off guard? You are nothing compared to the might of my fleet." The humans froze. This was it. The final confrontation with the leader of the alien invasion. Clark's heart raced as she realized that they had underestimated Zaylor. The alien commander had been watching them all along. "I knew about your teleportation technology from the very beginning," Zaylor continued, his voice dripping with venom. "You thought you were clever, didn't you? But you've walked right into my trap. You see, Earth is already lost. My fleet is already positioning itself to crush your pathetic resistance." Clark's mind raced. The feeling of betrayal washed over her. This wasn't just a battle, it was a trap they had fallen into, and now there was no easy way out. The alien leader knew everything about their movements. They were surrounded, and the exit strategy was compromised. But despite the fear that gripped her, Clark refused to give up. The mission had to succeed, and the stakes had never been higher. With Zaylor's mocking words still ringing in her ears, she signaled her team to continue with the plan. There was no turning back now. "Do it," Clark ordered, her voice steady despite the pressure. "We don't stop until the mission is complete." With a tense breath, the team activated the explosives. The ship rocked as the explosives detonated, sending shockwaves through the flagship. The alien forces scrambled to respond, but it was too late. Earth's soldiers had done what seemed impossible: they had broken through the seemingly impenetrable defenses of the alien flagship, and they had dealt a crippling blow to the heart of the invasion. But the battle was far from over. The explosion had created a chain reaction that sent parts of the ship into chaos. Zaylor had been caught in the blast, but his defeat was not yet guaranteed. The humans still had to fight their way out. The countdown had begun: if they didn't get off the ship before it exploded, they would be lost. With the explosion ringing in their ears and the ship falling apart around them, Lieutenant Clark and her team made a final dash to the teleportation device. The battle had been long and hard, and their chances of survival were slim, but they had made it this far. They weren't going to stop now. As the final moments ticked down, Clark's heart pounded in her chest. The aliens had underestimated humanity, thinking their superior technology would be enough to win the war. But in the end, it was the humans' resourcefulness, their courage, and their sheer will to survive that had turned the tide. Despite the odds, they had found a way to strike at the heart of the invasion and cripple the alien fleet. As the teleportation device activated once more, sending the team back to Earth, Clark couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. They had done it. The turning tide had begun. But the war was far from over. The alien forces were still out there, and Supreme Commander Zayler had not yet been defeated. But now, the humans knew that they could win. The aliens had made one fatal mistake: they had underestimated the power of the human spirit. And the fight was only just beginning. The alien fleet loomed large in space, a terrifying sight of advanced ships and technology. But despite the overwhelming strength of their enemies, Earth's forces had managed to claw their way to this final point. The human soldiers, though vastly outnumbered, had made a remarkable comeback. Thanks to their teleportation technology, they had successfully infiltrated key alien ships, disrupted the enemy's operations, and taken control of several crucial warships. They were no longer just survivors, they were a threat the aliens could no longer ignore. At the heart of the alien fleet, the alien flagship remained the central command hub for their invasion. The humans knew that if they could take down this ship, they could end the war and cripple the alien forces. But they also knew that it wouldn't be easy. Every step of their journey had been met with fierce resistance, and this final confrontation would be the most dangerous of all. The humans, though few in number, had something the aliens didn't: the element of surprise. With their teleportation devices still functioning, they had a powerful advantage. Every time they appeared behind enemy lines, it was like a ghostly attack from nowhere, catching the aliens off guard. But now, they would face the ultimate challenge, a final, direct assault on the alien flagship, with everything on the line. General Rayner, the leader of Earth's forces, stood in front of a giant tactical map, studying the movements of the alien ships. His face was lined with fatigue, but his resolve was stronger than ever. This was the final push. There was no turning back now. "We have one shot at this," he said, his voice calm yet filled with determination. "Our forces are outnumbered, but we've taken control of key ships. It's time to hit them where it hurts. We need to launch a full counterattack on the alien flagship. This is our last chance." The plan was simple yet dangerous. The human soldiers would use their teleportation technology to launch surprise attacks directly on the alien flagship. The hope was that by striking at the heart of the enemy fleet, they could destabilize the entire invasion. But it would require perfect execution. One mistake, and the entire mission would fail. With a signal from General Rayner, the attack began. The humans launched their teleportation assault, sending small groups of soldiers directly into the heart of the alien fleet. Lieutenant Emma Clark and her elite team were among the first to teleport onto the flagship. The moment the soldiers materialized on the flagship, chaos erupted. The alien crew had been caught completely off guard. The humans, armed with advanced weapons and cloaking technology, quickly disabled the alien weapons systems, rendering the flagship defenseless. With the ship's defenses compromised, the human forces began boarding the enemy vessel, determined to push forward, no matter the cost. The action was intense. The human soldiers fought their way through narrow hallways, using their teleportation abilities to disappear and reappear in strategic locations. They cut down alien soldiers in close-quarters combat, using their speed and surprise to their advantage. It wasn't just about firepower, it was about outsmarting and outmaneuvering the enemy at every turn. With every step they took, the humans pressed on, pushing further into the ship. The visuals of their attack were nothing short of cinematic: alien soldiers stumbling in confusion as humans appeared from nowhere, weapons drawn, ready to fight. Explosions rocked the interior of the ship, sending debris flying as both sides battled for control. Despite the overwhelming odds, the humans held their ground. But at a heavy cost. As the battle raged on, several human soldiers fell, their sacrifices making the survivors more determined than ever. The loss of each soldier stung deeply, but it only fueled their resolve. They couldn't afford to fail now. Every fallen comrade was a reminder of why they fought. The fight wasn't over yet. The humans had made significant progress, but the alien flagship was vast, and they were still a long way from the command center where Commander Zayler was waiting. The closer they got to the center, the fiercer the alien resistance became. Zaylor had anticipated that the humans would come for him, and he had prepared his forces accordingly. But the humans didn't hesitate. As they reached the final set of doors leading to the command center, Lieutenant Clark and her team made their move. The doors opened, and they were met with a group of elite alien guards. The battle that followed was a blur of energy blasts, hand-to-hand combat, and sheer willpower. The humans fought with everything they had, knowing that the fate of Earth rested on their success. At the center of the chaos, Commander Zaylor stood, watching as his soldiers struggled to repel the human forces. He was calm, even in the face of imminent defeat, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of rage. He had underestimated the humans. He had thought they were weak, nothing more than a nuisance. But now, they were in his command center, and he realized just how grave the situation had become. "You are brave," Zaylor said, his voice echoing through the room. "But it's too late. You cannot win. My fleet will crush you." But General Rayner wasn't intimidated. "You've underestimated us from the beginning, Zaylor. And now, you're going to pay for it." With that, the final battle began. General Rayner and Commander Zaylor faced off in an epic showdown. The two leaders, one human and one alien, were locked in a fight for survival. Zaylor's strength and alien technology gave him an edge, but General Rayner's determination and tactical brilliance were unmatched. The battle was fierce, each blow echoing through the command center. The humans had already taken control of the ship's weapons, but now it was a matter of taking down the alien leader. Rayner's strikes were precise, his movements calculated, while Zaylor relied on his brute strength and advanced alien armor. But the more they fought, the clearer it became, Zaylor had underestimated humanity's spirit. Finally, with one last desperate strike, General Rayner overpowered Zaylor. The alien commander staggered back, his armor cracking under the force of the blow. He collapsed to the ground, and with a final breath, he let out a roar of defiance. The invasion had been stopped. With Zaylor's defeat, the alien forces were thrown into disarray. The flagship, now crippled, began to fall apart as the humans completed their mission. The remaining alien ships, without their command structure, scattered in retreat. But the victory came at a high price. The human forces had suffered devastating losses. Many soldiers had given their lives in the fight for Earth. General Rayner stood on the shattered bridge of the alien flagship, his face grim. The war was over, but the cost of victory was heavy. "We did it," Lieutenant Clark said, her voice weary but filled with pride. "We stopped the invasion." General Rayner nodded, his eyes scanning the wreckage. "Yes, but at what cost? We've lost so many." As the humans made their way back to their ships, the teleportation device was used one last time to return them to Earth. The battle for survival had been won, but the scars of war would remain. Earth was safe, for now. But the humans knew one thing for sure: they had proven that no matter how great the enemy, they could overcome it. And as long as there was breath in their bodies, they would fight to protect their home, no matter what came next. The final showdown had brought the alien war to an end, and Earth's forces had emerged victorious. It was a hard-fought battle, one that would go down in history as a testament to human determination, courage, and spirit. And while the humans had won this battle, they knew the galaxy would never be the same. They had proven to the universe that they were not to be underestimated. The future was uncertain, but the humans had something no one could take away from them: the knowledge that they had fought for their world, and had won. And that, in the end, made all the difference. The war was over. The final battle had been won, but its cost was heavy. Humanity stood victorious, having fought an overwhelming force and emerged with their planet intact. The alien fleet, once a powerful and menacing force, was now in complete disarray. Their supreme commander, Zaylor, was dead, and with him, the unity of the alien invasion. The fleet that had been so sure of their domination was now broken, its ships scattered and its leadership lost. The teleportation technology that Earth had used to launch surprise attacks on the alien forces had been the decisive factor in their victory. It had allowed humans to strike at the heart of the alien fleet, turning the tide of battle in their favor. The aliens had never seen it coming, and that unpredictability had proved to be Earth's greatest weapon. The final blow to the alien fleet came swiftly after Zaylar's defeat. With no clear command, the remaining alien ships were thrown into chaos. Their once coordinated strikes became disorganized, and without the leadership of their supreme commander, they could not withstand the human counterattacks. One by one, the alien ships were destroyed, their crews either captured or forced to flee into the depths of space. Humanity had not only survived this invasion but had repelled it. The aliens, once certain of their superiority, were left reeling from the overwhelming defeat. Their once unimaginable technology had proven ineffective against the humans' will to survive. Earth's resilience had shown the galaxy that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. Back on Earth, the mood was one of both relief and mourning. The war had cost many lives, and the survivors would never forget the sacrifices that had been made. But despite the loss, humanity had achieved the impossible. News of the victory spread across the planet, and people celebrated in the streets. There were no longer any doubts about Earth's place in the galaxy. They had faced the greatest threat to their existence and had fought it back. In cities all over the world, there were parades, memorials, and celebrations of victory. People from every corner of the globe stood together, united in the joy of their survival. It wasn't just a victory for one nation or one people, it was a victory for all of humanity. The story of their resilience, determination, and unity had spread far and wide, not just among Earth's citizens, but also across the stars. And while Earth was celebrating, the world also took time to honor those who had fallen. Thousands of soldiers, scientists, and civilians had given their lives to protect the planet. Every fallen hero was remembered, their sacrifices acknowledged. Monuments were built, and names were inscribed in the history books for future generations to remember. In the midst of all the celebration, General Raynor stood before his team, a somber expression on his face. The victory was sweet, but the cost of war weighed heavily on his heart. His once proud army, filled with men and women who had fought bravely, now had to come to terms with the lives lost in battle. The survivors, including Lieutenant Clark and the rest of the soldiers who had stormed the alien flagship, were hailed as heroes, but for Raynor, the victory was bittersweet. I stand here today, not as a victor, but as a representative of all those who gave everything for this moment, Raynor said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. We won this war not because we had the most advanced weapons, but because we had something far more powerful, the courage to stand together and fight for our home. He looked out over his team, his eyes meeting the gaze of Lieutenant Clark, who stood among them, a weary but proud figure. Lieutenant Clark, you and your team were the backbone of this victory. You showed the galaxy that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humans will never back down. You all are the reason Earth is still here today. The soldiers stood tall, their heads held high. The gratitude in Raynor's voice was evident, but it was clear that the victory would always be tempered by the sacrifices made. He saluted his team, and they returned the gesture, a bond formed in the fires of battle. They were a family now, bound not by blood, but by their shared experience of fighting for humanity's survival. As the celebrations continued, Earth's leaders knew that the end of the war marked the beginning of something much bigger. The alien invasion had opened their eyes to the vastness of the galaxy and the dangers it held. But it had also shown them the strength of humanity. They had proven they could not only survive but thrive in the face of adversity. General Raynor, now hailed as a hero, was called upon to lead humanity into this new era. There were plans to rebuild Earth's cities, some of which had been damaged during the war, but more importantly, there were plans to begin humanity's journey into space. No longer would Earth be isolated on a single planet, humanity was destined to become a force in the stars. Earth's space programs were immediately restructured. The technologies developed during the war, such as the teleportation devices, were now being adapted for peaceful exploration. Scientists worked to refine the teleportation technology, hoping to use it for travel between distant planets. Engineers began designing new ships, larger and more advanced than anything that had ever been built before. Humanity had survived the invasion, but now they were looking toward the stars. In the months following the war, Earth's first interstellar missions were launched. The teleportation technology was used to establish contact with other star systems, and humanity began to make its mark on the galaxy. The once feared species that had been seen as primitive were now boldly exploring space, their reach extending far beyond their home planet. As the sun set on a peaceful Earth, the final message of the story was clear: humanity would never again be underestimated. They had faced the worst the galaxy had to offer and had come out victorious. They had stood together, overcome their differences, and fought for their survival. In doing so, they had earned the respect of not just their own planet but the universe. The final visual of the story showed Earth's skyline, now restored and bustling with life. The once dark skies, filled with the shadows of war, were now clear and full of possibility. Cities were rebuilt, and the people walked with hope in their hearts. As the camera pulled back, it revealed the first human ships preparing for launch, their destination set for the farthest reaches of space. In the distance, beyond the Earth's atmosphere, the stars shone brightly. Humanity, having defeated one of the greatest threats they had ever faced, was now ready to take its place among the stars. They had proven their strength and resilience, and now, with the dawn of a new era, they would explore the universe, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the credits rolled, the message was clear: humanity will never again be underestimated. This final part concludes the story with victory and the beginning of a new era for humanity. It reflects on the cost of the war but celebrates the unity, resilience, and strength that carried Earth to victory. The story ends on an optimistic note, showing that humanity is now ready to explore the stars and carve out its future in the vast universe. The final message leaves the audience with a sense of hope and excitement for what lies ahead.